In this next segment, we're going to be talking about mentoring across generational gaps. Ida, I'm wondering what you think about that. I think most people in general, when we think about a mentor and a mentee relationship, we think of kind of an older mentor and maybe a younger mentee in terms of coming into that relationship. And maybe there's differences both in kind of worldviews and just kind of the way things go. Do you have suggestions for how people navigate that?
Well, it's a funny thing because mentoring has always been about generational differences and transmission of information from someone more experienced to someone more junior. And it's included in cultural transmission or transmission of culture within a community. So it's not at all unusual to have those differences. And today we focus so much on the differences that many people may start out anticipating differences that don't even exist, or anticipating differences in worldview or attitudes. And so I think the key to this is to enter a relationship with someone of a different age, different generation, the same way you would enter any relationship if you want to make it work. And that means being open and recognizing that what worked for you as as an experienced person may not work for somebody more junior because the world is very different for them today. And for somebody junior, not to write off the experience and insights and advice of somebody more senior as irrelevant, when in fact, even though things are different, there are many nuggets of wisdom that you get from experience. That's the whole point of working with somebody who is older and more experienced, the fact that they have something to benefit you. And so the first thing is simply to respect the difference, to be curious and open and receptive to a different view of the world.
Yeah, I think that sounds to me like that's important on both sides, right? I mean, as much as I think it's presumed, or at least it's hoped, that the mentee comes to the relationship with a curiosity, right? Wanting to know how to advance their career, wanting to know how to do better. But I think it's equally important on the mentor side to get curious about what's up and coming. To me, that's one of the huge benefits of being a mentor, is you get an opportunity to be curious about someone's view who's just coming into the profession. It has a way of kind of renewing your own profession in a lot of ways, I think. Do you have thoughts about how do you strike that balance between, I think I always hesitate to think back, when in some of my mentoring relationships, statements that start with, well, back in my day, right? Every time I hear someone saying that, I get worried. But that's valuable, as you point out, right? To know our history as a profession, to know what's valuable. How do we balance? How do we infuse enough of that, but also don't just make it about kind of war stories from the past, so to speak?
Well, it's a funny thing. I think this is where being a parent is helpful. At least being a parent of teenagers or kids as they get older, because you start to realize that they aren't going to be exactly the way you want them to be. They are their own person. And it's very hard to face that and to deal with the challenges that come. And years go by, and you can have the perspective of saying, oh, that was really interesting. I wish I had paid more attention to that. Or, of course, this is somebody who's not going to be doing things the way I want to. They live in a different time. And from their part, it's how often do we hear about somebody who's older and says, God, I can't believe how smart my parents were, 40 years ago. So it is a matter of recognizing that we all have something to contribute, we all have something to share, and try to learn from each other. This business about generational differences, I think, is often exaggerated. There are absolutely differences. But when I started practicing law a very long time ago, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and challenge authority, and we, never trust anyone over 30. Until you hit 30 and 35 and 40, and suddenly your worldview changes. So things change, but people, even though they change, a lot of things stay the same, and a lot of the issues that you face as a young lawyer remain the same. Regardless of where in history you are, and as somebody older, to recognize you have an awful lot to learn, because just because you know how to do it your way doesn't mean your way is going to continue to work for you, because the world around you is changing. And so recognizing that and trying to learn from somebody who's younger and who does see the world and experiences the world differently is a very important and very valuable lesson.
And I think that's one of those critical points where the roles tend to blend, right? Who's the mentor and who's the mentee can very easily blend over in some regards on these kind of micro issues or micro questions about how do I do that, or what does this mean, or I have a client who wants X. What does that even mean, right? So
I have a button that says, because we've always done it that way, and with a line through it. And I think that's where every lawyer needs to be all the time now, because the way we've always done it isn't happening anymore. The whole legal profession, the whole marketplace, everything is different and changing much faster than anybody my age experienced in the past. So, hanging around with younger people is a really important thing for a lot of reasons, but that's certainly one of them is to learn new perspectives. And I just want to finish by emphasizing the point you made. It really is a mutual learning relationship. When it works well, each of you contributes something, and each of you learns something. And one may be teaching more, and one may be learning more. But if you're not getting anything out of it that expands your thinking, then you're not doing it right.
Great. And I think that's a great spot to wrap this segment. So thank you.